During the 9th Summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, Colombia assumed the pro tempore presidency of the organization. The Dominican Republic has declared 3 days of national mourning after the collapse of a nightclub roof in the nation's capital that claimed the lives of at least 218 people. And Russian and U.S. delegations arrived on Thursday in the Turkish city of Istanbul for a new round of peace negotiations regarding the conflict with Ukraine. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. During the 9th Summit of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States in Tegucigalpa, capital of Honduras, Colombia assumed the pro tempore presidency of the organization for the period 2025-2026. Pedro said at the closing of the summit that he will work on a strategy towards Haiti and its democratic strengthening and the concrete overcoming of the blockades imposed on Cuba and Venezuela. The new president of CELAC acknowledged that what follows will be a stormy month, but then clarified that storms are always good because they lead to port faster than before. For this reason, he asked CELAC and the region to act in unity. And in Honduras, the heads of states and government of the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States participated in the 9th Summit of the organization with the objective of strengthening integration ties, cooperation, and regional political dialogue. Let's see.
La cumbre contó con la presencia de representantes de 33
The summit was attended by representatives from 33 member countries, where various issues were addressed, including the violation of human rights by the U.S. government towards migrants, who have been criminalized by Washington.
Sobre si esas cárceles deberían estar o no estar, pero lo que sí critico es que no puede llegar ningún migrante a una cárcel de esas.
I do criticize the fact that no migrant can arrive to one of those jails because he would be treated as a criminal and as a slave, and he is not. He is a human being, and Latin America cannot lower the flag of human dignity. Human dignity was what made us to be born as republics. None of us is a monarchy. If we forget that phase, which is the same as the history of the United States except for Canada, we forget what the concept of human dignity itself means.
En ese sentido, el presidente de
For his
Cuba,
part, the president of Cuba, Miguel Díaz-Canel, denounced the defamation campaigns that seek to misrepresent and generate contempt towards the Cuban medical brigades as part of a new form of aggression against the island.
A ello se suma ahora la infame campaña contra los programas de cooperación médica que Cuba brinda a más de 50 naciones.
To this is now added the infamous campaign against the medical cooperation programs that Cuba provides to more than 50 nations, launching fallacies, accusations against the solidarity work of the island and its positive and significant impact on the lives of millions of people in Latin America, the Caribbean, and the world. The restrictions on the visas of any person on the planet who supports or benefits from such programs constitutes vulgar blackmail, a scandalous and flagrant threat, and an unjustified aggression. This new pressure is not only intended to punish Cuba and the altruistic and humanistic vocation of its professionals, but also reflects an absolute disregard for the health of the people and communities that receive the benefits of Cuban medical services.
entre tanto, la mandataria
Meanwhile, Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum invited to hold a summit for the economic well-being of Latin America and the Caribbean with the objective of creating a greater regional economic integration for prosperity and respect for the sovereignty of nations.
El día de hoy tengo una propuesta para ustedes.
Today I have a proposal for you. I invite you to convene a summit for the economic well-being of Latin America and the Caribbean to make greater regional economic integration a reality, based on shared prosperity and respect for our sovereignty.
El presidente de Brasil, Luis Inácio Lula da
The
Silva,
president of Brazil, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, stressed the need to promote regional trade in goods and services to facilitate exchange among nations, and affirmed his willingness to boost trade, payment in local currencies, and the regional financial system.
Necesitamos promover el comercio regional de bienes y servicios.
We need to promote regional trade in goods and services, its diversification and increasing facilitation to expand our exchange. My government is determined to reactivate the Alati Reciprocal Payments and Credits Agreement and expand the system of payments in local currency, integrate transportation, energy and telecommunications networks at short distances, reduce costs and encourage synergies between productive chains. Brazil has been promoting 5 South American integration routes that will link the Caribbean, Atlantic and Pacific regions and strengthen regional financial institutions, such as CAF, the Caribbean Development Bank. Is essential to ensure that these projects become a reality.
Líderes destacaron que
Leaders emphasized that CELAC should be a space that consolidates political articulation and provides solutions to the problems faced by nations, in addition to promoting cooperation and sustainable development.
En un mundo marcado por transiciones geopolíticas, desigualdades económicas.
In a world marked by geopolitical transitions, economic inequalities and threats to democratic stability, CELAC must consolidate itself as a space for political articulation, where our voices are heard without external interference and where we can forge our own solutions to the challenges we face. It is important that as a region we reaffirm the indispensable role of effective multilateralism and bear witness to the importance of strengthening our participation in these international forums to promote cooperation, solidarity and sustainable development.
For his part, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro said that the union among the peoples of the region, in the face of current challenges, is an obligation. He also stressed that the councils of ministers must be retaken with strength and contribute experiences and ideas for common action.
La unión de nuestros pueblos es una obligación y debe ser construida en base al patrimonio que hemos.
The union of our peoples is an obligation and must be built on the basis of the heritage that we have managed to contribute and accumulate proposals. CELAC must take up again with strength the realization of the councils of ministers, as Honduras has done with its extraordinary presidency. I congratulate President Xiomara Castro and Honduras for the virtuous leadership she has shown to reactivate the joint councils of ministers in the economy, health, education, science and technology, but councils of ministers that contribute experiences and ideas for common action.
Los jefes de Estado y Gobierno pertenecientes a la comunidad de
The
Estados.
heads of state and government belonging to the community of Latin American and Caribbean states presented joint programs in strategic areas such as economic and trade cooperation, food security, and the fight against poverty in the face of imperial threats.
We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. In the Dominican Republic, the number of fatalities caused by the collapse of the roof of the jet-set nightclub rose to 218. Families of the missing people denounced the lack of transparency and negligence in the identification process. It should be noted that more than 300 rescuers continue working and providing constant medical support. Also, in a gesture of solidarity, a brigade from Puerto Rico joined the work in the field. In this regard, the Dominican government called on the population and the media to avoid spreading unconfirmed information so as not to generate confusion or increase the pain of those affected. And on behalf of the Dominican authorities and rescue forces, the director of the Emergency Operations Center expressed his solidarity with the families of the victims.
embrace every family member in a virtual way and point out to them that the authorities will be with them until the last moment and we will not abandon anyone until we leave everything in place.
And after recent misunderstandings, the authorities stressed that no one had been rescued alive from the scene for more than 24 hours.
Since yesterday at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, we have not rescued any person alive, unfortunately. The authorities that are here on the orders of President Abinader are not going to leave this scene until there is a family member claiming a victim that is not in the morgue or in a hospital or is here. That is to say, we are not going to leave.
And from April 16th to the 20th, the 19th edition of the Great Auction of Books, Records and Films will take place in Mexico. The event will take place on the esplanade of the Monument to the Revolution in Mexican capital and aims to provide the public with opportunities to purchase a variety of works at low prices. Under the slogan, "Save a book, don't let them destroy it," visitors will be able to purchase children's books, popular science, art, history, poetry, world literature, comics, graphic novels, among others. During the event, a wide variety of vinyl records, DVDs, and CDs of different genres will also be on sale. This great auction of books, records, and films will have the participation of more than 240 publishing houses and free entrance. And in France, the arrival of artificial intelligence has transformed many industries, but behind this growth lies an environmental impact that is really taken into account. Asking a question to ChatGPT requires 10 times more energy than asking a question to a search engine like Google. Training a large language model generates between 200 and 300 tons of carbon dioxide, the equivalent of 250 flights between New York and Beijing. Data centers which run artificial intelligence consume a lot of energy. By 2030, they are expected to account for 3% of the world's consumption, equivalent to the annual consumption of France or Germany. And in other news, Gabon goes to the polls this Saturday for its first presidential election since 2023, military coup that ended a political dynasty of more than 50 years. In Live revealed, political pollsters are overwhelmingly in support of the oil-rich nation's interim president, Brice Clotaire Oligui Nguema, who seized power in the coup that ousted former President Ali Bongo Ondimba. The Bongo dynasty was seen as one of that profited from the country's oil wealth while many lived in poverty. Oligui Nguema won support on a platform of anti-corruption and change. Gabon's new constitution, adopted in a referendum in November, sets the presidential term at 7 years, renewable once. We now have our second and final short break coming up. Before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, I'm going to be back with more. Welcome back. A new round of negotiations between the Russian and U.S. delegations began in the Turkish city of Istanbul. The meeting between the Russian and U.S. delegates held behind closed doors at the Russian Consulate General in Istanbul will focus on issues related to the functioning of the two countries' diplomatic representations. Russian Ambassador to Washington Alexander Darchev heads the Russian delegation, while the U.S. team is led by Deputy Assistant Secretary of State for Russia and Central Europe, Sonata Kultur. The talks are going ahead despite Russia rejecting a Ukraine-backed U.S. proposal for a 30-day ceasefire. Algeria and Somalia called for emergency Security Council meeting of the United Nations after Israeli aggressions against Syria. The request comes after the intensification of the Israeli military attacks against the Syrian territory, according to the Algerian state news agency. The request for this meeting came after consultations and agreements with the Arab group in New York. The presidency of the UN Security Council is expected to hold the meeting this Tuesday, April 10th, according to the press media. And 6 civilians reported killed in Yemen after a new round of attacks by U.S. warplanes. In the late hours of Wednesday and early hours of Thursday, criminal U.S. airstrikes targeted several areas of Yemen. Washington has intensified its attacks on Yemen in recent weeks. On Tuesday, U.S. fighter jets launched 3 airstrikes on a farm which injured 4 guards and farm workers. The U.S. is conducting strikes in Yemen as a response to the actions of the Arab country's armed forces, which have launched missiles and drones against commercial and military vessels in the Red Sea in solidarity with Palestine and in protest at Israel's genocidal war in the Gaza Strip. And since mid-March this year, 107 civilians have reportedly been killed and 223 more injured, mostly women and children, as a result of U.S. attacks, according to a report by the Yemeni Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Migrant Affairs. Despite these attacks, the Yemeni armed forces continue their operations in support of the resistance and the Palestinian people in the blockaded Gaza Strip by carrying out strikes that have reached the heart of the territories occupied by the Zionist regime and even U.S. warships in the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, in addition to shooting down several advanced U.S. drones. Also in Yemen, the army reported the downing of a U.S. drone flying hostile mission in the air over the Arab country with a locally made missile. Yemen's Armed Forces spokesman Lieutenant General Yahya Sadi said that this was the 3rd drone shot down by Yemen's air defenses in 10 days, reiterating that Yemen remains on the side of Gaza. General Sari added that they will continue to carry out missions to confront any aggression that undermines the sovereignty, security, and stability of the Arab country. In an attempt to stop pro-Palestinian operations, the United States resorted to an offensive naval deployment against Yemen and intensified its attacks on the territory of this country. Meanwhile, the Palestinian population continues suffering from Israel's genocidal campaign against the Gaza Strip. In the last 24 hours, at least 38 people were killed by the intense bombardments of the occupation army. Israeli warplanes struck residential buildings in the Shuhaya neighborhood east of the city of Gaza on Wednesday, leaving at least 30 Palestinians dead, including children. The bombings also left around 55 injured and 80 people missing under the rubble. On the other hand, Israeli troops continue to demolish homes in southern Rafah under heavy artillery and machine gun cover. According to the Palestinian Health Ministry, 50,846 people have been killed and more than 115,000 wounded since the beginning of the Israeli genocidal campaign against Gaza in October 7, 2023. And as the Israeli regime continues the siege of the Gaza Strip, 60,000 Palestinian children starve, according to the Ministry of Health in the Palestinian territory. Since March 2nd, the Israeli regime has closed off all crossings into Gaza and blocked the entry of essential supplies, including food, medicine, and water. The Health Ministry has warned that the lack of adequate nutrition and drinking water will compound health challenges, with the continued ban on vaccinations for children, especially polio vaccinations. According to the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine Refugees, Israel's ongoing siege of the region has had a devastating impact on children in the enclave. And the International Court of Justice will start public hearings on Israel's obligations regarding its presence in the occupied Palestinian territories. The court clarified in a statement on Wednesday that the sessions will take place between April 28th and May 2nd at the court's headquarters in The Hague, the Netherlands. It added that 40 countries and 4 international and regional organizations had expressed their intention to participate in the oral arguments before the court. The court will also examine the activities of the United Nations and other international organizations in the occupied Palestinian territories. And in other news, the main stock exchanges in Asia opened Thursday with strong gains, with gains of around 9% in the case of Tokyo and Taipei. The rally in Asian markets comes after Trump announced a temporary pause in the new tariffs that came into force for dozens of its trading partners the day before, after most had agreed to negotiate. The Asian giant's sparks also started the day in positive, and the benchmark indices of the Shanghai and Shenzhen stock exchanges advanced 1.29 and 2.29% respectively. The rise comes in spite of the fact that China raised tariffs on U.S. products to at least 84% the day before, a measure to which Trump responded with a total levies of 125% to Chinese goods. Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.